Hi, I'm Amy and I'm here for my third micro-teach. I will be explaining my lesson on the Preamble of the Constitution. It is geared for 6th to 8th grade, but I'll be using it for my 8th grade class at Robertson. My objectives for the class will be for students to read and understand the complicated text that's in the preamble, and to be able to break up the phrases in it and understand the meaning. First, when students come into my class, they will be used to going to what's called an entry ticket. They will come to one of the bulletin boards that they're used to, and they'll come into every day, and it will be supplied with pens, markers, sticky notes, index cards, so that they can write down their thoughts as to the entry ticket. So today it is in the style of Jeopardy, where you're given the question or the answer and you have to come up with a question. So today's is, the answer is Preamble to the Constitution. So the students will write down on their sticky note what they think the answer would be. So, meaning what would they know about the preamble of the Constitution. So this will give me a chance to go back later after the class and see what their prior knowledge is to this lesson. I also have an exit slip that they will use when they leave, and these will change throughout the week. This is a lesson that will probably go on, it could be a week or more, depending on how much time is needed for understanding. The exit slip is just fashioned into a stoplight. Red meaning I need more help, so they put something up here with their name on it. Yellow, I'm getting it. And green, yes, I get it. So again, this would change throughout the week, and this I think probably would be maybe geared a little bit more just for the first day, because I don't know that many 8th graders are going to want to say at the end of the lesson that at the end of 2 weeks that they still don't understand what's going on. So I would use a different exit ticket for something like that. Now, this is my makeshift whiteboard since I don't have one. Let's put your paper. My husband won't be happy at hunting when there's no paper left. So what I would do after I have seen that they're getting done with their their entry tickets is I would start a video on YouTube that's Schoolhouse Rock. It is they have lots of videos. It's the one that I've chosen for this lesson is an animated version of Song of the Preamble. So I'll look it up and see if you can. Talks about the Constitution and the preamble itself. So anyway, that's a little bit probably not at the perfect spot, but anyway, that's kind of what I would go with that. And I would let them watch that, and I feel like this would relax them, get them in their seats, and it would be a cue for them to start paying attention. And if they had listened to the video, then they would also have an idea of what is coming next in the lesson. I would then, once that starts to draw to an end, I would start to write a bit of the preamble on the board. At this point I would stop and I would just watch the class, and I would have them read that, and I would ask who knows what comes next, who's familiar with what is next in the statement. I think that depending on the previous knowledge and how much I've covered this previously, they're going to say, of America. We the people of the United States of America. And so, I would continue on with that and continue asking. I don't know, if I was here, I don't even know that I would say what do you think comes next? I don't know that I would say no. I don't think that I would say that. I think I would just continue writing to see, how many. I don't know that I would agree or disagree with anything. I just continue to write a little bit more, and then stop again, just to kind of get their interest more. I think that the more that, or maybe the less that I'm saying to them, they will, pay attention a little more and try to get me to say something. So then I think that I would get to this point and ask again. And then I would do the next phrase and the next phrase until I had it done. And then we would be kind of over here. Then at this point, once I got done with it, I would read the whole part again. So we the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. Then I would ask, raise of hands, how many people have heard this before? What do you know about this? I would check for understanding, and I think that I would throw out some of the Bloom's taxonomy questions here. We the people of the United States, how would you explain this phrase? What about do ordain and establish this Constitution? Very difficult, complicated text for a lot of adults even. And so I think that I would begin to, at this point, start breaking this down. And I would start maybe grab another marker and, kind of start up here. We the people, I would ask the students, what else could we use? There's other wording, phrases that we can use to make this more simplified, to understand it a little bit better. That's the way that, anybody would go about attacking a complicated text. And so I would ask, does the government work here? What about, our forefathers, men and women? Does this, apply just to American citizens? Is it immigrants? Is it Native Americans? Does it apply to everyone? We kind of go into a discussion on that quickly, and then we would go on down and maybe grab a couple more of the phrases here, just so that they're getting an understanding of how to start grabbing certain phrases or wording and separate it out. So I would go maybe down to a more perfect union. And I'd say, let's, work on this one here. So a more perfect union meaning, I'd ask them, what is that meaning? What does this phrase mean to you? How would you explain this phrase? What could we use? Sorry, I'm shuffling through some of my papers here, but could we use to unify? Would that be a good phrase to stick in there? What about to make a better union? And then I would ask them, which one of these work better here? Which phrase works better? How would we, rephrase something else here? What's meant by this? Do we get a better understanding of this once we break it down? The government of the United States, in order to form or to unify, make a better union, we establish justice. And I would kind of go through just that way. And, and I wouldn't get every one of the phrases here, but I would get some of them so that there was a good understanding of that. Then I would hand out a whole group form for the students that is exactly this. It is the preamble, we the people, all the way down, so that they can, on a double spaced paper, so that they can start to do this, what I've done on the board. And at that point, we would then have a whole group discussion, and they'd be able to, write some things that they are considering, and what, and then ask, some questions. And I would say to them, using what you've learned, what we've discussed on the board, think of ways that you can change, make your own phrases, and break that up. I would also hand out a vocabulary sheet that they would work on, and they would be responsible for finding the vocabulary words in some of these that I chose, and that would be something that they would want to do after class at home. So then the next day, like I said, this is a lesson that would go on for possibly a week or more. The next day or a few days later, once I felt like we had gone over this quite a bit and they had maybe had a chance to learn some of the vocabulary, I would grab a beach ball that I think is a fun game. It's a way of helping them learn without them realizing that they are, kind of cementing some vocab words. I'd break them up into groups of 6. Everybody would have a number 1 through 6, and then they would... on, like, say that somebody was a 6, and I would have, maybe I'd have the word tranquility, or, just a few words on here. And if they were a 6 and I threw it to them, they'd look at the word and then tell me what they knew was the meaning of the word. I think that's just a fun way of breaking stuff up. Another thing that I would do periodically throughout the lesson is let them break up into groups and discuss with friends. I also would give them a sheet that was the preamble that was double-spaced so that they could work in a group. And so that group work, they would have whole group work, and then their own personal group that they would, or the personal form that they would use for homework. So when they're doing the group work, I would walk around and listen for comments that would maybe benefit the whole group, listen for questions, and just observe the class that way as they had time to visit with peers about the lesson. So then, once the groups had had a chance to collaborate their thoughts, we would do individual work, and so I would give them a chance to look into their social studies books, dictionaries, internet, any resource that they could find that they could get more information. And then the students' part of the lesson would be for them to learn the vocabulary words. It would be for them to be able to break up the text, the complicated text, and to simplify it. And then they would turn in their own form, their own preamble that they had constructed at the end of the lesson, and they would present it to the class. So the way that I would assess this is I would... obviously, with their vocabulary test that I would give, maybe a multiple choice or something along those lines. And then I would also assess on understanding of meaning of that text and the cohesion of their final project. You could take this and you could do it bigger or smaller, but I do think that it's a good way for them to understand how to break up complicated text, and it's going to help with this lesson and many other lessons in reading books, novels, newspaper, anything. I think that that's a good lesson for 6th or 8th grade. Thanks.